gameplay video. Hi there, YouTube. Mark Vergeer here. For some reason my webcam doesn't want to focus, so alas. Gameplay. There's this great new little shooter. It's a shoot 'em up and it's called Super Nano Blaster, and it can be really probably best be explained as Ikaruga, minimalistic, with a bit of a housemark thrown in. Anyways, let's go check out some of the gameplay. I'll start up the game, and of course I'll need to switch over to the game output. Let me see. Screen and webcam capture. No. And hopefully, if I do this, it'll show the gameplay. Not sure, but Super Nano Blaster. Yeah, I've got quite a few of these games. Played it for the first time, and I believe my high score isn't too shabby. But yeah, let's see how it plays. You basically fire your weapon with the A button and change the scenery with the X button. One player game, normal, start mission. Just go with default ship. Oh, no, it's level 2. I don't want to go to level restart. No, quit. Yes, I just want to go to the first. I just don't want to continue, but play the first level, story mode, normal, electric sheep. Yeah, this is the first level, I think. Yeah. So it runs very well on very low-end systems, and it really doesn't have a lot of you change around the scenery like so, and you pick up your extras. So it's like Ikaruga. It has a bit of cave shooter vibe to it, checkpoints, Ikaruga, cave shooter, geometry wars, but it's not a twin stick shooter, it's just a regular shooter. You change the scenery. You are able to change the scenery when you're not flying in a wall or something like that. So you can only jump from scene to scene when you're in an open area. And you'll recognize these because they're of a lighter color. So this is actually quite interesting. You just can actually shoot this double, and you just collect a ton of these extra points. You really have to know how to switch around. They play homage to no, I'm just slow here. Oh well. Checkpoint. Perfect. Well, I don't think it's perfect, but so yeah, very interesting game mechanic. I find this a bit easier than Ikaruga, I guess because things move at a slightly slower pace. But this is just not a brainless shooter. I mean, it has definitely some strategy elements to it. You don't want to be too greedy, picking up all the points. Whoops. I find that you don't want to use your thumb for both the firing action and the switching action. I use my index finger on the X button and use my thumb on the on the Switch, it works better that way for me. Using one finger, when it really gets hectic, my brain sort of goes into some sort of short circuit. Whoops. So here you can actually see that you can only change when you're in this lighter area, otherwise you'll just end up in a wall. So this is actually quite interesting because it allows you to play this game and progress, and the better you become at it, the easier. Oh yeah, and it's just not game over, because it just deducts your points, and if you get to 0 points, your points are actually your how do you say that, your energy bar. And I like to do it like this, so you just switch around. This is actually a good example of how this mechanic works. You just switch around. I mean, yeah, this really borrows a lot from Ikaruga, this black and white alternating thing, where white bullets would only damage one phase of your ship, and here it's not the ship that is in different phases, but it's actually the whole universe that you're flying in, this weird tunnel-like thing. New record, cool. One death. The Underworld. I really like the graphical presentation. I'm quite a fan of these simple geometric shapes. It really focuses on the gameplay. There's actually quite a few also twin stick shooters that have a similar graphical yeah, and I'm not the best at playing and gaming at the same time, and I just definitely hope that the OBS screen capture together with the webcam actually works this time. And I'm actually capturing this on a little PC with Ryzen 7 5700G. It's like this APU thing, and I don't think they support hardware capturing. Whoops. Oh wait, there's an extra ship or something. So sometimes you just don't have to be too greedy. And you just, yeah, if you really want to get a high score, of course, get the maximum points, you really switch around frantically. Whoops, overclock. I'm not sure what that's about, but I guess when you really switch very well and fast, it just awards you with an overclock. I'm not that keen on overclocking because whoops, yeah, here you can actually see that it doesn't allow you to change into a wall. So you have to find a white area or a lighter area where there's actually space to enter. And I just love big explosions. I love the music. Yeah, I'm just a sucker for this type of game. This is what shoot 'em ups are all about. And they're not like the stupid bullet hell games. I mean, there's quite a bit of strategy involved, and You have to really think about stuff. The cool thing is if you, whoops, oh bloody hell, yeah, whoop, that was a bit of shield thing, I guess. Sometimes you get confused because with your environment changing that much, I think you're only allowed into these little boxes. That's really, ooh, that's really anemic. Anemic, well, you know, small spaces, claustrophobic, that's what I was. So yeah, if you see that you die and you so you really have to think about the environment as being two playing fields at the same time. Once you get your head wrapped around it, it really becomes second nature, says he who. So I mean, this is the second time I played this, and of course it does help if you've seen some of the levels before. And I guess actually the first time playing through it is actually the most fun, because you really have to think real hard and plan, and the other way around it's just remembering. So, okay, this is actually where I ended up. So this is a nice boss where you, whoops, where the game is actually a bit easier because you can avoid avoid the weird stuff, the weird places that you can't get out of in other bullet hell games. You really have an escape, of course only limited because, well, it's just a matter of switching between two. Whoops, it's a bit of a slowdown, I guess, these so you get put back slightly before where you got killed. So yeah, this does have a bit of a learning curve. You really have to figure out what is the best way to go about stuff like this, you know, like when to switch. But I really like it. I mean, it really plays very nice. I mean, it has a learning curve, and of course restarting this bit can be a bit grating, but it's not like having to restart over a complete level and your points just get deducted. You know, you do progress, and if you become really good, then you just don't die, but you do get the practice with this, and you do get a sense of achievement, which is good, which is nice. And of course, you just don't wanna ignore the little pluses that you created, because, well, you'll lose them. I mean, they will disappear at some point. Whoops. So you have a bit of shield thing, a bit of a shield action, but also yeah, you really have to switch around, because otherwise you won't be. Okay, so now this unit itself, oops, yeah, so it just flies around on spokes. Oh, one up. If you play it in story mode, you basically just move through the levels, being able to see all the levels, practice, and I guess there's this other mode where you just basically, whoops, let's avoid those little I just love this big number of items on the screen. The game does it really well. This is programmed in Unity, so very well. Whoops. Let's get out of those bullet hell areas. So that's actually quite interesting. You can just avoid bullet hell. I mean, there are games that just throw that at you, and they just expect you to just avoid those bullets. There's often a single spot in the screen where you are safe. Here there are multiple. I really like that. I mean, it's tough, but it's not like crazy tough. It's my personal best. Ranking 119 of all players. That's not bad. It's cool that you get to see that. Recycle bin. Am I replaying this? Not sure. Quite like the music, and I like the fact that the colors are slightly different. I like the contrast. Oh yeah, this level really has you plan your exits. And on these darker areas you can't jump. At least, no, you can't. It just refuses you. And with the analog stick, it's actually quite nice. It just whoops. So yeah, I mean, and this just goes on and on and on. It becomes quite repetitive actually, but at the same time, it's actually quite good. It's one of these games that gets you in the zone. Whoops. So I lost my shield, and I get to earn it back. Checkpoint. Whoa. So it's very hectic, and I'm not at my best at the moment. I'm quite tired. And you get confused. Your brain gets confused a little because, well, you know, flipping around. But I guess because your whole environment changes, it's actually easier to switch around because you get the focus, and otherwise you'll just have to, with Ikaruga, you have to really somehow strain yourself to see whether or not it's black or white. And here it's just a lot of shapes and colors that are different. So I guess it's easier. I think this actually is the better game. Although people who really love Ikaruga are probably gonna cry, no! This is just one of these Unity games, you know. There's no real programming involved. Well, you know, there is. It's a very nice game. I quite like it, and it's cheap. I got it on Steam, and it's like €7 or something like that. There's a discount going on in my area. It's really recommended. I say I really like this. Now this is just, you know, a couple of the first playthroughs. Let's see how this video turns out. It might actually be that OBS really doesn't like this or capture this. I'm capturing this in OBS at 1080p. But yeah, I mean, it just goes on, and yeah. Quit. Okay, let's turn around to the camera. So yeah, playing this with this third-party Afterglow controller. It's RGB, and I'm a sucker for RGB. It slowly changes colors. This is the Xbox One version of the controller. I also have another one. That's the previous version. That's the Xbox. Oh, this is the Series X, I believe, and this is the Xbox 360, I believe. Yeah, and it glows green. But I really like these. The action buttons are, the face buttons are really nice, and the sticks are really nice. The D-pad is nicer than the Xbox gamepad, the Xbox 360 gamepad. So yeah, I have a few videos coming up. I've rearranged my game room. I've done away with a couple of my PCs, and I've gotten some mini systems, mini PCs. One is running Linux and Batocera, the other one is running Windows 10 next to my big gaming rig. I figured it was prudent to somehow see if I could have some low power computing devices in my game room for emulation purposes and stuff, other than the Raspberry Pi and the Mister, in order to just don't consume as much power, don't heat up the room too much. Yeah, just to have a more environmentally healthy way of gaming. And it's actually quite fun squeezing a lot of performance out of lower powered devices. And I got lucky because two of the systems actually, one of them is an i7 4th generation, I believe, with an AMD Vega mobile chiplet on it. It's like the marriage, the child of the marriage between Intel and AMD, and they made this laptop CPU with an iGPU with separate memory, so it has fast memory, and it's actually quite good. The thing is that both Intel and AMD shied away from and I'll be to show it. It's this system. It's like an Intel NUC clone. I call it Hades. And I believe it's called Hades for real as well, but it's very similar to the official Intel NUC. It even has a blue skull on the side. I got that as a gift for filling in some forms and stuff, doing customer research, and I mean, I really had to fill in a lot of forms. So I mean, the amount of time it took, if you count it as work, it's probably fair pay. The thing is, it's a very nice system, but both Intel and AMD, the drivers that they provide are actually own drivers, OEM drivers, to the producers of devices or the Intel official NUC. The thing is, my system is no official Intel NUC. It has a different hardware vendor, so Intel drivers nor AMD drivers, regular drivers, work after a certain version of Windows 10. They just stopped supporting the damn thing last summer, I think. So this system, if you run Windows 10 and you run the latest version, the drivers actually say, well, you know, you can't run this driver update because the latest driver update because your Windows isn't supported. And Windows 10 is just not a single Windows. It's just a set of Windows. I mean, they call it Windows 10, but they're different builds. And if you're unlucky, like with the AMD and Intel drivers, then they only support a specific set of Windows 10 versions, and well, you're out of luck. Thing is, audio HDMI out on the Intel on the Intel side just doesn't work with the latest drivers. You have to revert back. The Intel bit also has an integrated GPU, so it actually has two integrated GPUs on the same silicon. So it's actually two separate integrated GPUs, the Intel one and the AMD one. You have to install both drivers, and you can let the system decide which one to use depending on the load. Basically, this chip, this conglomerate, this this abomination of two companies on a single silicon chip. I mean, it's not well supported in Windows, but what is supporting it better than Windows is actually Linux. So I've installed Linux on this system, Pop! OS and Batacera. And the thing is, if you run Windows and you want to play like Horizon Zero Dawn with the old AMD drivers from last summer, there's a lot of glitches, like grasses, like geometry errors and stuff. So you really need the latest drivers, and it is possible to hack into the system, and changing the INI files of the drivers, or manually copying in and out certain files from the different driver versions, and actually adding in the vent, basically creating your own installer for your system. But the thing is, Intel and especially AMD is very keen on updating their drivers a lot, their Windows drivers. So they patch a lot of errors with games. So I think it is a sign that they might not adhere perfectly to the graphical standards, because for some reason on the on the NVIDIA side of things, you don't see that much graphical errors and issues and glitches, from my experience at least, as on the AMD side. But yeah, I mean, if you can't update or auto update your drivers or they break, you know, that's not how I roll. So that actually was the first time that I was confronted with a system that I wanted to use for gaming, where Windows wasn't the option, but Linux. Batacera is Linux. It's Debian, I believe, and Pop! OS is based on Ubuntu. I dual boot in this system, and it's capable of PlayStation 3 emulation, GameCube, PlayStation 2. It runs them beautifully, and also Steam with Proton, and I guess we owe it to the Steam Deck that it's actually become quite well supported, all sorts of games, and I find the performance quite good. So yeah, that's my free Intel i7 4-core 8 threads. The AMD GPU is a Vega M Mobility. Standard AMD Windows drivers don't work on it, which is a crying shame. Linux all the way. It has two NVMe drives, and it has a ton of I/O. A really nice system. And then I have another system, which I did buy, but I bought it secondhand, and it's an MSI mini system with a Radeon 7 5700G, and it had bent pins, and they had a they sold this with a different CPU, but that little PC doesn't allow you to install an internal GPU. It has two NVMe drives and it has two SATA spots. I bought the system with the low end, I believe it was a Ryzen 3, one of these very early APU. They put that in, and they wanted to upgrade it to the 5700G, and they bent some pins, and I got one of these mechanical pencils. It's like a pencil that technical drawers used to use way back in the 80s and 90s and stuff. I used to use those in high school when I was drawing, you know, geometrical bodies and stuff for calculus or for math. But if you take out the lead, you just, you know, take it out, then you have this perfectly capable thing that you hold in your hand. I don't have it with me here, and you can just slide it over the bent pin, and you can just, if you are very careful, you just can bend those pins back. It's very nerve-wracking, because if you break off a pin and it's not one of the ground planes, but you know, like PCI Express or a data pin or something, you know, you have a dead CPU. So I got this Ryzen 7 5700G really cheap, and the whole system only cost me like 270 euros, and the Ryzen 7 5700G is, I think, about that. So I got an older Ryzen GPU, I got memory. I did take out an NVMe drive of some other systems, but yeah, it's been a really nice system. It's a 3rd gen Ryzen. It has 8 cores, 16 threads. I'm actually playing this on this system. Let me see if I can pull up quick GPU. Yeah, and let's see if I can show the screen. So yeah, it's set to ultimate performance, but it's an AMD Ryzen 7 5700G with Radeon graphics. It has, let me see if I can show you the, oh yeah, it's the Radeon graphics. The Radeon graphics, they have 4 gigabytes, they have separate memory, and 16 threads. It does run a bit toasty at some points. It boosts up to 4.6 maximum. Yeah, but it's a very complete little unit. The BIOS is just locked down. Let me see if I can bring myself back. Yep. The BIOS is completely locked down, so you can't overclock the memory. You can't overclock the system. It just, you know, it just has a very basic BIOS. So no overclocking the CPU in the BIOS, and the memory that it's using is 3200 megahertz, 2 sticks. So it runs actually quite well. The other system, the fake NUC, also has a very closed down BIOS. So there's no tweaking, there's no overclocking, but both systems run really nice. The MSI system, the Ryzen system, has a low profile, knock to a fan, and it's actually the only fan in the system, and it's really quiet. It only ramps up when you really stress the unit. It's yeah, it's a really fast CPU. It's a surprisingly small but well outfitted system, and I have Launchbox on it, I have PlayStation on it, I have 4 completely filled drives. I've most of my Steam library. I'm gaming at 720p, 1080p most of the time. My eyesight has not been what it was. One of my retinas actually has a tear in it, a puckered retina. So actually the central part of my vision on my left eye is just not there. I don't notice it, but I have to look slightly to the left or the right or up and down, because the central of my vision is just, it's not a black spot, but I just don't see. And there's all sorts of crud drifting around in both eyes. And, oh well, you know, it's, I mean, so I'm sitting close to the TV and at a lower resolution, and it's been fine. But I don't do 4K gaming, you know, don't have to. Yeah, the details are lost on me, I guess. And being able to use a 35 watt or 65 watt system, or a 35 watt system, or a Mac Mini M1, which is completely silent, because yeah, that's also a system that I have. That's an M1 Mac Mini, and of course my over there, yeah, my my cable is not long enough, but over there is my big, I call it the cool shrink, the cool shrink, the koelkast, the big, yeah, it looks like a fridge. It looks like a big fridge where you pick out soda cans, or, you know, it's really, it has 4 stacked huge hard drives, and it has a ton of NVMe. It has an NVIDIA RTX 3070, and it's liquid cooled. It has a ton of memory, and it has this Ryzen 9 5900 or something on it. It's actually the Ryzen 7 5700G and the Ryzen 9 1500. I mean, they really are in this, not completely, but they're like high-end systems. The thing is, the cool shrink doesn't cool the room. It's actually it has an 850 watt power supply, or yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a beast, but it also sucks a lot of power. And lately I've become more aware, more sensitive to using power. We have solar panels on our roof, so on a hot day, you know, I don't feel as guilty. But it's good to use less energy, and I like tweaking and tinkering around. It's I think it comes, it's the closest to a retro, tinkering with a retro gaming PC, squeezing the most performance out of it that you get with modern hardware. But yeah, so my game room, it has a lot of emulation capabilities. A lot of stuff is in storage. I've sold quite a fair chunk of my collection. I think about half. Don't worry, I still have a ton. I sold. Look, there's a lot of discs still, and there's a lot of cartridges, but also there's a lot. Oh, sorry for the camera. It's not something you do. There's in the game, there's this huge section behind the window. It's a slashed roof in this room. There's a huge and the camera work, and the camera and the mic being at, it probably, sound wise, this video is probably gonna suck. Whatever. Yeah, there's stuff in the attic, there's stuff in the garage. I've sold many double systems to a rather well-known Dutch collector who knew the price. I knew the price. It was a good deal. I actually sold that beginning of 2020, just after the first lockdowns were closed, and actually getting visitors was allowed again, decluttering actually was a good thing for me, because I wasn't playing all the games that I had, and clutter just, stuff really, if it's too much, it really drains you. It really it has a very positive effect, owning less and go for quality instead of quantity. So I actually have a whole set of mini systems up there. It's very hard to see, but there's a VIC-20 Maxi, there's an Evercade, a handheld, there's some iCases for Raspberry Pis, there's a Core Graphics Mini, there's Nintendo Mini systems, there's a PlayStation Mini, the C64 Mini and the Maxi. A ton of stuff, a ton of, and of course I have a set of core systems that I will never get rid of. A couple of PlayStation 2s, PlayStation 1s, Xboxes, Xbox 360, ColecoVision, Intellivision, Atari home computers, 130XE, 800XL, ZX Spectrum 3 Plus, ZX Spectrum 48 Plus, a ton of Spectrum tapes. Things that I got rid of were my second net gyros. Yeah, I had two. How crazy can you get? I got a lot of doubles, and I bought a huge amount of lots from people getting rid of their collections, and some of those deals are actually quite excellent because you get a lot of value, but you also get a lot, and you get a lot of doubles. And I really wasn't the person who was going to sell stuff on eBay. I flipped PCs back in the 90s, actually paying my way through college. And I was quite good at it. I'm still quite good at building PCs. You see these huge YouTubers, I'm bragging, okay? You see these YouTubers, these tech YouTubers, that they built their systems online, and they always make mistakes. And I'm like such a perfectionist that I just almost never, with the last 7 PCs I built, I never made a mistake. It would always post. I was lucky that I wasn't having any hardware issues. The only error that crept up was actually when I built a system with my father-in-law a couple of months ago, where the system wouldn't post. And that was because I knew it wouldn't post, but I was helping my father-in-law build the system, and I coached him and I told him what to do, and somehow we forgot, and I already knew that was just this little cable. I believe it was the motherboard power cable, not the motherboard power cable, but the power button. It was on the wrong pins on the motherboard. So so I was flipping PCs, and I wasn't keen on going the eBay route or going the Marktplaats route, or people buying stuff online can be such not a good experience in my opinion. I'm very good at packing my stuff. I overpackage. I think a good packaged package should be, the contents of a package should survive a 6 feet drop without any damage being done. So everything contained within should also be padded enough so that it would survive a drop like that. Also, my box or my package should survive being having like 6 feet of other packages on top, because they throw these things around. They just, they don't have the time to just, carefully set these things, set them up, according to weight or something like that. Well, they probably do, but I mean, the work these boys and girls from the postal services, what they have to do, and the stress and the wages. Yeah, some people are harping on delivery people, but without them, we wouldn't get our packages, and their work is tough. And there's a lot of people that aren't home when they are supposed to be home, so it works both ways, actually. But yeah, I package things well. And people, there's a lot of liars and cheaters on the eBays, and I just am not keen on selling my doubles. So I ended up with like a double collection. And I would okay, I have 3 copies of Ridge Racer 7 for the PlayStation 4. Oh, which one is the best? And I would combine, and I would look at cases, and this is this has a little nick on it. Oh, the other one hasn't. And and that's actually stuff that I liked at some point, but in the end I didn't. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, very bad video. Can be helped, I guess, but yeah, these mini systems, they're really quiet. That's a good thing as well. I used to have a big tower Ryzen system in here. It ended up being one of the game PCs of one of my nephews. Yeah, it was just too loud and noisy. So quiet systems, nice. Yeah, but I sold quite a fair few of my doubles, and also stuff that I just wasn't keen on using that much. And it was a whole truck. it was a whole truck. When we moved here to this place from Leiden, we moved to this little place. The moving company actually had to hire a smaller truck because they didn't account for the huge games collection that I had stuffed everywhere. And a similarly sized truck was actually used by the guy who bought my stuff, and he wanted to have it all. I made some photos and said, well, would you be interested in buying it all for a good price? And there are certain items that I just won't sell in bulk. You really have to, pay a fair price for that, but it doesn't have to be, how do you say that? It doesn't have to be the, raking in the money, me raking in the money. He was getting a good deal, and I was getting rid of my substantial part of my collection, and I knew that there wouldn't be any hassle because he could see what he got. And yeah, I mean, pick up a net gyros. You're not going to sell that for 10 euros, I mean, and I still have a net gyros, so I mean, you don't need to, do you? Commodore 64s, I have a ton of. That system I could never get rid of. ColecoVision, I have 2. They both have the issue with the power button again, which corrupts the graphics. I tend to turn on the Mister more and more, but I just love the cartridges. I just love the look and feel of the system. Maximo RD, he recently got a ColecoVision again because the other one was stolen after a break, and he did a video recently telling us about that. His wife Melissa gave that to him. Very, very sweet gesture. Yeah, so the games that I have in the game room that I play are Xbox, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, Wii U, Wii, NDS, 3DS, Switch, Evercade. Oh yeah, I got this Evercade Founders Edition black one. I really like the Evercade. I really like collecting for it as well. Um, the packaging is very nice. It's like it's similar to 3DS cases or DS cases, but slightly taller. They look nice. They look nice, and the game is nice, and you actually get extra games just because you own the system. They just appear. They just download, and it's really a fun system. And yeah, I support them. I'm looking forward to getting the Spectrum next year. I have to make do with emulation or the Mister, which also has a Next Spectrum Next core. Yeah, I was a big emulation dude in the early 90s, late 80s. Emulation already was on my radar on the Commodore 64. There's a Spectrum ZX Spectrum emulator on the basic emulator on the Commodore 64. Commodore emulation, Commodore 64 emulation on Amiga, Atari ST emulation on Amiga, Power Mac, Mac OS emulation on the Amiga, MS-DOS PC, MS-DOS based emulation, arcade emulators, Sparkade, MAME, standalone emulators for specific games. Really good stuff. Commodore MSX, Spectrum, Nesticle, Genesis, Genesis. Yeah, a ton of these. The PlayStation, the Mac PlayStation, Connectix, PlayStation emulator, Bleem. Yeah, I'm really fascinated by emulators, FPGA software, of course the real deal, and nothing beats gaming on the real deal. But keeping up with all that, repairing it. Sadly, I'm not John Beta. If I was, I probably would have held on to more systems, but. Yeah, for some reason I'm more of a software guy and a gamer, and I love hardware, but I'm not that good with the soldering iron. And I'm good at building systems. Perhaps it's something I should invest in. An Amiga. I have an SCOM Amiga 1200. I sold an SCOM Amiga 1200, and I believe that was my German version. I have a Dutch version, but it's faulty. So I got an Amiga 500 Mini, and I use emulation. I also use EmuBerry on Raspberry Pis. Yeah, emulation of Amiga is something that I resorted to. I might actually put a Raspberry Pi in my Amiga with a Kira. I'm not going to go as far as put my Amiga 500 in my A1200 case. Because I think a Raspberry Pi 4 would just do just as great a job. Perhaps even a Raspberry Pi 3 or 2 with EmuBerry. Yeah. Games that I've been playing lately were God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn and the sequel. I like action adventure games. I like story-driven games. Control, I've finished. The Metro Exodus, the Metro games, I love. Fallout, the Far Cry series, Witcher, Red Dead Redemption, the Cry. What's that? What's that? PlayStation. A set of PlayStation games. Not Far Cry, Soul Cry. It's a horror-like hack and slash jump game. I can't come up with the title. And there's a ton of racing games that I've been playing. Forza, Gran Turismo 1, 2, 3, 4, and the special editions. I couldn't get into 5 because that was just updating all the time. Whenever I turned on the PlayStation, it would just update. On the PlayStation 4, the Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 4 also, and sports, it would also just continuously update. I don't, I have my periods where I just play a game and I'm like on a game on our system quite a long time. So certain systems that just don't get turned on for weeks, I just focus on a certain system. And so every time I turn on, I happen to turn on the system that, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, it would just update the system software and then it would update the game. And Gran Turismo, at certain times, it would just want to download 60 gigabytes or something. And then again, because it's like not smart updates, no, it's like sequential updates, and you just have to update and update and update even if you're behind. It's not like the final update is like the update. It works like that, of course, I know, but it's very annoying, especially when you don't want to clog up the internet when your wife is working from home and doing video conferencing and stuff, having important meetings. So it's just insane. It's just insane, the amount of downloads and stuff. But Gran Turismo 1, 2, 3, 4, those are the Gran Turismos that I like, and the other ones, I'm not gonna go and get Gran Turismo 7 because of the way Polyphony, I believe, is treating the customers. Sony is treating their customers. If you buy a full price game, you are supposed to get the complete game. And what you shouldn't do is take certain items out, make them unreachable or virtually unreachable by actually playing the game, but make those items accessible when people pay real money for it. So that bit just absolutely rubs me the wrong way. And there's some other things like loot boxes and stuff. There are games that have loot box mechanics or caches and stuff. The God of War games, for example. Kratos is actually opening up loot boxes. Luckily, you don't have to pay any money for them, or there's no game economics. It's Dungeons and Dragons. It's like a rogue thing, and rogue is cool, but rogue also is, or an adventure also is a bit of a grind. Making the grind less of a grind by having people take shortcuts does away with the achievement, the sense of achievement that you get from doing the grind or playing through a game, and people stating that they've finished a game or have reached a certain level just by paying up more. Yeah, I mean, there's already so much economic disparity in the world. Why introduce that to games? I mean, yeah, of course, people who have loads of free money to spend, they probably won't think twice about spending like a couple of $100 on virtual cars in Gran Turismo 7. But I bet that there's also a ton of people that just don't have that kind of money lying around. Yeah, emulation. I mean, I keep going back to emulation, and I think most people in the world might actually play Android handheld devices. Uh, and they're not Western gamers, and but they're gamers, and they're us. And I think we have to be more inclusive. I guess that also rubbed me the wrong way a bit. It's also very materialistic, you know, stuff. I just love that George Carlin sketch where he talks about stuff. It's a really good. It's a really good talk. I mean, it's old, and sadly he has passed away a long time ago. But stuff never gets old, and stuff and clutter and stagnant clutter, yeah, it can really cause quite a fair bit of overwhelm. And I tend to collect knickknacks, and I tend to just spray them around, and then I'll just get overwhelmed. And having free walls, having art on the wall, having good lighting, having and I'm sitting here with on the floor a ton of controllers and wires and stuff. And it's and painting. Oh, this is cool. My nephew, he's 6. He drew the Switch. He's a big Switch gamer, and he drew the Switch. I really need to frame this. I love it. And we share the Switch. I mean, they're on vacation in Denmark. My sister does a FaceTime. I'm walking around in France, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Ace. He wants to know how do you create this? How do you create this portal? What does the portal look like to go into the Nether?" And then I'll just tell him and show him, and he just creates a portal to go into the Nether and stuff. And it's actually quite fun because it's like looking at myself in a way. And I really wonder what. I mean, when I was his age, it was the Binatone, Pong, at my uncle's, Uncle Joop. And I was just blown away by the Pong Binatone to be able to control a rectangular white part of the screen, and the sound came out of the speaker. I was just blown away by that. For Ace, it's a highly advanced Android-like device, with 3D environments and stuff, and his point of reference is quite different than mine. And we're like this huge, we're almost half a century apart. So yeah, that's sort of, wow, yeah. That's really crazy. yeah, so it's a gameplay. Me showing off a new shooter. It's a bit of a waffle. Um, yeah, Rich Review Tech USA. He reached 1 million subscribers. Congratulations. That's quite a big achievement. A while ago, I did a talk with Mainmeister. We had this discussion, and I believe it's a podcast, but it's also on his YouTube channel. Very nice discussion. Always good talking to Alan. Um, Actually, today he did a really nice interview with Gary from Ocean Software. Uh, they also addressed one of my questions. It's really good. Yeah, good thing there's still a few of the old bunch of YouTubers around. Pete, he's actually starting to collect PlayStation 3 again. He's building up his collections again. That's what Pete does. The catharsis of getting rid of stuff he knows, but he also starts up collecting again, and he does the cycle, which is fine, which is good. Um, I I try to steer away from that. PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 is really cheap these days, but I'm not buying any more games. The games that I do buy are Evercade games, and the odd game on the PlayStation 4 or 5. I don't have any physical PlayStation 5 games. None. I do have the disc system, but I have no single PlayStation 5 game. I have an Xbox One, Series X, and a Series S downstairs. Downstairs it's like discless, so everything is digital download. And the Xbox One, I have like 7 or 8 games for it. Yeah, collecting games, collecting modern games, getting physical copies of modern games, it's like a bit useless. They're like license keys that get read, and then the entire game gets downloaded off the internet. It's what's on the disc might be some rudimentary version that's flawed. There was this thing with, I believe, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 consoles. If the battery dies, then people would not be able to play their downloaded games anymore or something like that. So it's like DRM, slapping users in the face, here and now gaming. So yeah, PlayStation 5, all the experiences I have on the PlayStation 5, I treat it as going to the theater or going to the movies. Of course, you have a prolonged exposure playing through Horizon Zero Dawn, which I'm actually playing on the PlayStation 4 Pro, and so that my wife has access to the PlayStation 5. I mean, my eyesight, it's good enough on the PlayStation 4. But yeah, what was my point? Yeah, digital downloads. It's like disposable throwaway stuff. I mean, even with Sony and Microsoft going to this service thing, and they shy away from streaming because streaming, the lag, and yeah, it's. I mean, there's a ton of people that just won't have any good experience apart from the this tiny area in Northern California where everyone is close to the servers. They will have a good experience, but streaming it actually the only good streaming experience is Hands Arcade, a British retro gaming streaming service, which is really good. Doesn't feel any very laggy, but everything else it's just like a pixelated mess. Yeah, laggy pixelated mess. So digital downloads, verification, server side, it's just crazy. I mean, we went on a trip to France, and Elise, she wanted to have the possibility of playing the PlayStation 4, and actually, I put the PlayStation 4 in this bag, and there's space for 2 controllers, PlayStation 4, vertical stand, HDMI wires and stuff. But in order for it to work in France, I had to make it my primary console, log in, and so that, and then turn off the network, and that way it had an activated state. And I'm not sure for how long that would work, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, I'm not sure, but it would have to connect up to the internet to verify the licenses at some point. And if for some reason the clock would reset or the battery would die, there's no way we would be able to have access to the server, to the games, unless we use the phone as a hotspot and just log in that way. I took my Vita with me as well on the trip, PlayStation Vita. I figured it would be one of the last times that I was able to take the Vita with me on a trip, because the Vita, well, I do have like 10 or 11 physical Vita games. There are cartridges, there are updates, but a lot of the games, they work without the updates. Some do need their downloads because otherwise they're buggy, but all the digital stuff, all the digital downloads, the Vita has to be activated for certain games. It has to check with the server, and you can do that with the Vita. Also, I brought the Vita, but I had to keep it charged so it wouldn't lose the date, time, and the activation setting, because otherwise I would also have to hook it up to the internet through a hotspot and just verify the licenses and stuff. So when it comes to digital downloads, I mean, Electronic Arts is really good at that, and some others as well. I mean, Dirt 3, I think, or Dirt 5, yeah, great game. The thing is, when you start it up for the first time, you get not one, but a couple of ULEs that you have to ULAs, sorry, that you have to scroll through in order to get access to the game. And if you don't agree to the agreement, you won't be able to play the game. And just to have, the game starts, and then there's these amounts of text that you have to go through. That's just insane. I mean, that has nothing to do with enjoying a game, and also inserting a disc. If you insert this disc and general DVD or Blu-ray, and you have to mandatory watch a ton of commercials and some threats of being thrown in jail for decades on end if you watch the video cross-eyed or something like that. That's just insane. So digital downloads that you get locked out of whenever the companies decide to pull the plug is just insane. And that's the reason why I guess video game collecting and nostalgia storytelling is going to radically change, and the perception of games and the worth of games actually will go down. And it's really a hollowing out of culture, I guess. When you have the here and now paywall, the economic gain, and then, I mean, of course, studios and the people creating those games, they really have to get paid, and it's $1 million business. It's even larger than Hollywood, like the film business. And I like supporting these folk. And I also think that the systems that we play our games on should be systems that have a longevity to them, that don't rely on external factors to work. They should not end up being a landfill. I see a ton of PlayStation Vitas turning into bricks the moment that the servers are shut down. Quite a fair few people actually only have digital games or just a few physical games, and then they're just worthless unless you jailbreak them. And of course the Ouya, very promising system. I liked it, but without the server-side verification, you won't have access to the games you bought. Everything reverts to demo versions, and there's ways to get around it. And people have actually created fan-based servers and stuff, and you can use a proxy to just simulate the activation and stuff. But yeah, that's just insane, actually. So PlayStation 3 digital downloads and Xbox digital downloads. Elise and I, we really did download a ton of Xbox 360 live arcade games, and because it was easy and because there were a lot of great deals, in the end we end up with terabytes of games, good games. And I was just very keen on Xbox Series X and the promise of backwards compatibility. But foolish me, I figured, I can just shove in my disc of an Xbox original or an Xbox 360 and it would just play it, because, Microsoft is good for its customers and they'll allow me to just play the games. But the games need to be downloaded because they are, how do you say that, recompiled probably. And there's this server-side check that needs to be done. So, yeah, and it's not complete. So, yeah. So Xbox 360 is actually being capable of being emulated on the PC better and better. PlayStation 3 is very, very well emulated on high-end PCs. Xbox original is actually, with Zemu, is actually getting there. So yeah, going the emulation route. There's even a PlayStation 4 emulator in the works and a PlayStation Vita emulator, but there's a lot of fakes out there as well. So yeah, emulation. I think emulation and limited piracy in such a way that you get the games in emulated form that you actually own, and you yourself decide what you do with it. I think that would also be some sort of fair use, As a customer, you paid for something, and of course you agreed to a million times to ULEs that totally hollowed out all your your being, you're basically turned into a drug addict, a game addict that just needs to be fed new games from the dealer, and the dealer will just withhold the drugs if you don't do the things that they want. Yeah, so basically that's a kind of dynamic that is going on. I don't like to be dependent on companies that don't put me first. Yeah, companies that don't take you seriously. Companies that treat you as fools. So that's why I'm not, and then I'm getting back to the Gran Turismo 7, that's why I personally don't buy Gran Turismo 7 because of what they do when it comes to presenting people a game, full price game, and then expecting people to pay more. And the fact that people do it lets them get away with it. So I don't like to limit myself being all righteous, and that's not my shtick. But I'm quite, how do you say that? I'm quite strongly opinionated when it comes to consumer rights. And I guess we allow consumer rights to be hollowed out to such a large extent. I mean, a game is like a book, is like a record. You should have, if you buy it, you should be allowed to do with it and consume it the way you want to. If that's not the case, well, then it's not a good thing, I guess. And I also think it's time to go to bed. I hear the wife on the landing, and it's 10:15, so yeah, I guess for me it's time to say goodbye also. This video might not get uploaded at all, or it may, and I won't edit it that much, or at all. Let's see how it goes, and yeah, there'll be more videos coming up, for sure. Anyways, there's also a lot of good things when it comes to gaming, but you know, it's also relative if you look at the things that are happening in this world. Crazy people. We're just a crazy bunch of people in a lot of respects, but also, anyways. Goodbye, good night, and see you in another video. Thanks for watching.